Hello, everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. I was 19 the summer I thought I had finally gotten my life on track. Not successful, not glamorous, just steady. For most of my teenage years, I'd been drifting. After high school, I didn't have the money or motivation for college, so I jumped between odd jobs. Hauling trash at construction sites, sweeping up greasy diners after closing, unloading crates at warehouses where nobody bothered with safety gear. They paid in cash, sometimes late, sometimes not at all. My mom worried constantly. She'd say, "Jordan, you need something official, something with your name on a paycheck. Otherwise, you'll still be chasing scraps when you're 30. She wasn't wrong, so when I landed a cashier position at Pine Hollow Gas and Market, a squat little station off Route 219 in western Pennsylvania, I treated it like a step into adulthood. It wasn't much, but for the first time, I filled out a W-2, signed tax forms, and brought home a stub with my name on it. I remember showing it to my mom, proud as if I'd won a trophy. "See? It's real. I'm doing okay." The station itself sat in that strange no-man's land between highway and farmland. From the road, it looked like nothing. Just two pumps under a buzzing fluorescent canopy, a brick rectangle of a store, and a gravel lot that turned into mud every time it rained. But it stayed open 24/7, which meant steady business. There were 3 shifts: morning 6 a.m., 2 p.m., when commuters grabbed coffee and diesel; afternoon 2 p.m., 10 p.m., when families picked up milk, snacks, and after-work beers; overnight 10 p.m., 6 a.m., better known as the graveyard. During graveyard, the doors stayed locked. Everything happened through a sliding drawer beneath a bulletproof window. The idea was to protect whoever was unlucky enough to be alone from midnight drunks, drug seekers, and the occasional would-be robber. When I was first hired, I swore I'd never take those hours. Too dangerous, too lonely, but life doesn't ask what you prefer. My manager, Rita, was one of those women who looked perpetually tired but sharper than anyone gave her credit for. She had a raspy smoker's laugh, a messy bun that never stayed put, and the habit of calling everyone kiddo, even if they were older than her. "Jordan," she told me my first week, "I don't need you to be fast. I don't need you to smile. I need you to be here when you say you're here and not steal from me. That's it. You do that and you'll be just fine." I did exactly that. Showed up on time. Kept the drawer balanced. Didn't pocket cigarettes like some of the others. Within 2 months, she started giving me extra hours. By the 3rd, she called me into her office, a cramped broom closet with a desk. "Look, I know you don't like graveyards," she said, "but Tommy quit last night, walked out mid-shift, just left a note that said, 'Can't take it anymore.' You're the only one I can trust not to bail. It's overtime, plus a day off." After I remember sitting there, heart sinking. A part of me wanted to refuse, but then I thought of my mom, thought of the stack of bills on our kitchen table. I wanted to be dependable, responsible, not just another kid drifting. "Yeah," I told her, "I'll cover it." That was the night everything happened. September air in western Pennsylvania gets chilly after dark. By the time I clocked in for the afternoon shift, the lot was already filling with orange light from the setting sun. I spent most of the day stocking shelves, restocking the cooler with sodas, ringing up cigarettes for contractors still in their work boots. It was boring but safe. Around 9:45 p.m., I was counting change when Rita poked her head in. "You still good to cover overnight?" "Yeah," I said, though my stomach nodded. "Good kid. Don't fall asleep. And remember, drawer locked at all times. By 10:05, the last customer left." I locked the doors, dimmed the inside lights, and shifted operations to the glass window. Immediately, the station felt different, silent in a way that wasn't peaceful. The kind of silence where every refrigerator hum sounded like a warning. To stay awake, I brewed one of those scorched pots of gas station coffee and settled onto the stool. For the first hour, things were normal. A trucker bought cigarettes, a minivan, Dad bought energy drinks, and a college kid begged me to sell him beer without an ID. By 12:30, the road outside had gone empty. I leaned back, sipping the bitter coffee, thinking maybe the night would be easier than I feared. That's when the headlights appeared. A Ford F-150 tore into the lot, too fast, gravel spitting under its tires. It skidded sideways before jerking to a stop at pump 4. My pulse jumped. I'd seen drunk drivers before, but this one moved like he didn't care if he crashed. The door creaked open. A man stepped out. Medium build, wiry, jeans stained dark, boots scuffed, shirt untucked like he'd been rolling in dirt. The overhead light revealed his grin. Teeth yellowed, some broken, lips cracked and raw. Instead of walking to the pump, he came straight for the locked front doors, stared in at me, didn't knock, didn't speak. Just pressed his face against the glass, grinning. I raised a hand, motioned toward the service window. "Hey, over here, store's closed inside?" He didn't move, just kept smiling. Finally, after what felt like minutes, he sauntered toward the side window. His steps were slow, deliberate, like he was stretching the moment. When he leaned close, I caught the sour stench of alcohol and something else. Chemical sharp. "What can I get you?" I asked, forcing my voice steady. His eyes flicked to my name tag. "Jordan, you're not Tommy." My stomach clenched. "No, Tommy doesn't work here anymore." The man chuckled, low and raspy. "Figures, Tommy always set me up good. Left me a little something. You got it?" I blinked. "I'm sorry?" "You know." "The bag. He left it for me." His grin widened, revealing those cracked teeth. "Don't play dumb, kid." I swallowed hard. Realization hit. Drugs. Tommy had been dealing through the station. This guy thought I was part of it. "I don't know anything about that," I said carefully. "Tommy's gone. I just work here." His grin faltered, then twisted. He tapped the glass with one dirty fingernail. "Don't lie. Don't you lie to me." My hands were slick on the counter. "I swear, nothing like that here." For a long moment he stared, breathing heavy. Then he snorted, stepped back. "Guess I'll just get some gas then." Relief washed over me. I slid the drawer open, took his debit card and authorized pump 4. He walked back into the shadows. I expected to hear the familiar click of the pump shutting off. Instead, silence. No beep, no footsteps returning. Finally, I glanced out. My stomach dropped. The man wasn't pumping gas. He was standing by the front doors again, and he was soaked. His shirt clung to him, dark and glistening. His hair dripped. At first, I thought rain, until the smell hit me. Sharp, choking, unmistakable. Gasoline. He'd doused himself in it. My hand shot to the emergency shutoff switch, killing power to all pumps. Heart pounding, I stumbled back from the window. The man raised one hand. In it gleamed a silver flip-top lighter. He flicked it open, laughing, a high, manic sound that made my skin crawl. "Tell Tommy," he screamed through the glass. "Tell Tommy I want my bag." He slammed his other palm against the door, rattling the frame. Each strike echoed through the empty store. The lighter sparked again and again, mercifully not catching. I mashed the panic button beneath the counter, praying the cops weren't far. My chest burned with panic. Then, sirens. Red and blue lights strobed across the lot. 2 cruisers skidded in, followed by a fire truck. Officers leapt out, weapons drawn. "Sir, drop the lighter. Step away from the building." The man turned, still dripping gasoline, still grinning. His teeth glowed in the flashing lights. Then he flicked the lighter one final time. Flame. It roared up his torso instantly, engulfing shirt, hair, skin. He staggered, flailing, screaming. Only, it wasn't just screams. It was laughter, a twisted, inhuman sound that curdled in my ears. Firefighters rushed him, slamming him down, smothering flames with blankets, dousing him in foam. The smell seeped through the glass. Burned flesh, burned hair, gasoline. I gagged, vomiting into the trash bin. When I looked again, he was still twitching on the asphalt, his skin blackened, and somehow, impossibly, his mouth stretched in a grotesque grin. They loaded him into the ambulance. One paramedic shook his head before the doors closed. He didn't make it. Cops took my statement in the office. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. By the time the lot was cleared, the sun had begun to rise, painting the horizon gray. But the smell lingered. Burnt, acrid, unforgettable. I went home, showered twice, still smelled it, still dreamed of him. A week later, Rita called me. Jordan, the guy died. They said he had priors, meth, assault. That lighter of his almost took the whole building. I quit soon after. Couldn't handle nights alone. Couldn't handle the memory of that grin through the glass. Even now, when I drive past Pine Hollow, I swear I see him. A shadow at Pump 4, soaked, smiling. Story 2. I never imagined how quickly ordinary nights could split open into something unrecognizable. Something that keeps you awake for years. Looking back now, I realize there were signs. Maybe not flashing neon warnings, but little moments that should have told me the world wasn't as safe as I wanted to believe. I was 28 when it happened. That summer had been brutal, heat waves baking the asphalt so hard you could see the air shimmer. I had left the Army 2 years prior. 6 years of service, mostly stationed overseas, had built me into someone I didn't fully recognize when I looked in the mirror. The military strips you down, rebuilds you with steel where nerves used to be, and then spits you back into a world where grocery store aisles feel like battlefields because there are too many people and not enough exits. Civilian life never sat comfortably with me. I moved back to my hometown in Redwood, Texas, a quiet place on the edge of the desert. It wasn't much, but it was familiar. I picked up 2 jobs, daytime warehouse shifts moving freight, nighttime work with a small private security outfit. The money wasn't great, but I didn't care. I needed the routine, the noise, the exhaustion that made sleep come easier. Still, even with all the hours I worked, nights had a way of stretching too long. The silence of civilian life is different from the silence of deployment. Overseas, silence means danger. At home, it means loneliness. It was July 14th, 2019, a Friday night bleeding into Saturday morning. My shift with the security firm ended late. A coworker, Melissa, asked if I could drop her off since her car had broken down. She was one of the few people at that job who could make me laugh, and neither of us minded stretching the night out a bit. We stopped at a greasy 24-hour diner, shared bad coffee and worse fries, and joked about how we were too young to already feel this damn tired. By the time I pulled into her apartment complex, it was almost 2:15 a.m. My eyes felt like sandpaper, but I still had the 6 a.m. warehouse shift ahead of me. On the drive back, I told myself I'd grab an energy drink to keep me upright for the short sleep I was about to steal. That's how I ended up pulling into Redwood Gas and Mart, a place I'd been to dozens of times before. A squat, lonely gas station sitting off Highway 85, its neon sign buzzing faintly against the vast, empty dark of the desert night. Only this time, something felt off. The lot was empty. No truckers filling tanks, no drunks grabbing beer, not even a passing car humming down the highway. Just silence, broken only by the flickering hum of the overhang lights above the pumps. As I pulled into a spot right in front of the entrance, I noticed movement along the far wall of the building. A figure. At first I thought, homeless guy, nothing new. But the way he hugged the shadows sliding along the wall without stepping into the light, it didn't sit right. I cut the engine, rubbed my eyes, told myself I was overthinking it. Long days and longer nights make ghosts out of shadows. When I stepped out of the car, the figure shifted. Just enough to catch the outline of his face under the jaundiced glow of the overhang light. Gaunt cheeks, scruffy hair, lips parted like he was about to speak. "Evening," I muttered, quick and polite, hoping to slide past without a conversation. He didn't answer, didn't blink, just stared. Inside, the store was dead quiet. No music on the intercom, no chatter, only the low hum of the refrigerators. The cashier, a kid who couldn't have been more than 20, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I grabbed my usual energy drink, set it on the counter. "That it?" he asked, voice flat. "Yeah," I said. He scanned it, I paid, and that was that. But when I pushed the glass door open again, my stomach tightened. The man was gone. The lot was empty, but the shadows felt thicker. I walked faster toward my car, keys ready between my knuckles like I'd been trained. That's when he appeared again, stepping out from the far corner, deliberate this time. Not slouched, not hiding, straight, focused. My pulse spiked. I quickened my pace. Footsteps echoed behind me, too close, Too fast. I spun. He was right there. Jesus, I muttered, hands instinctively raising. Hey man, something I can do for you. His voice was raw, shredded, like it had clawed its way out of a dry throat. Got any change? The relief was sharp, almost laughable. If that's all it was, fine. Yeah, sure, give me a sec, I said, leaning into the driver's seat to dig in the cup holder for coins. That's when the passenger door creaked open. A hand clamped into my hair, yanked my head forward against the steering wheel with a crack. My vision blurred. His breath, hot and rancid, hissed against my ear. Don't you scream. Cold metal kissed the skin of my throat. You yell, you die. You understand? My training screamed at me to stay calm. Panic kills faster than a blade. I nodded slowly. Good, he rasped. Now you're gonna drive. I started the car. My hands shook on the wheel, but my voice came steady. Where to? New Mexico, he said, almost laughing. Keep driving. I'll tell you when to turn. We rolled out of the lot. The desert swallowed us. Headlights cutting tunnels through the dark. The hum of tires on asphalt, the only sound between us. For 10 long minutes, he didn't speak, just kept the knife grazing my throat. I could feel his eyes on me, hungry, studying. But then I noticed, with each mile, the blade pressed a little less. His grip softened. Maybe confidence, maybe fatigue. Didn't matter. I knew I'd get one chance. At the next intersection, headlights flared, a pickup barreling down the crossroad. My drill instructor's voice thundered in my head. Better to die fighting than live as prey. I slammed the gas. The collision was deafening. Metal screaming, glass shattering, airbag exploding. I grappled his wrist, slammed it against the wheel until the knife slipped free. He snarled, shoved me off, then bolted out the passenger door, vanishing into the desert shadows. The pickup driver yanked my door open, shouting, "What the hell, man? You drunk?" I tried to shove past him. Desperate. Don't let him get away. Don't let him. But my legs gave out. I hit the dirt, gasping, vision tunneling. By the time cops arrived, he was gone. I told them everything. His face, his voice, his knife. They logged it, nodded, asked routine questions. But they never found anyone who matched the description. Just another ghost swallowed by the night. That was 3 years ago. Since then, I don't take chances. I carry, legally, a pistol on my hip, a knife in my pocket. I don't sit in parking lots. I don't ignore shadows. But still, some nights when I close my eyes, I feel the blade at my throat. Hear his rasping whisper in my ear. And I wonder, if I hadn't slammed the gas, if I hadn't fought, would anyone have ever heard this story? Story 3. I never thought that working at a gas station would change the way I looked at people forever, but it did. It happened on a night that should have been ordinary, the kind of night I had already worked through 100 times before. But the thing about gas stations is that no matter how many shifts you work, no matter how routine it seems, you never really know who's going to walk through that door, and sometimes one person is all it takes to turn a normal night into something that leaves a scar on you for life. Before I get into what happened, I need to give you some context about where I was in life at the time, because otherwise you won't really understand why that job mattered to me so much, or why what happened that night rattled me in ways I still haven't fully shaken. I was 23 years old, living in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Bakersfield, California, with a roommate I barely knew. Rent was high, and we both worked long shifts to keep from drowning. My roommate, Kyle, was a truck mechanic, the kind of guy who worked all day and slept the rest of the time, which meant we barely crossed paths. That suited me fine. I liked the quiet. After growing up in a house where silence was rare, my parents fought like it was their full-time job. Peace and space were worth everything to me. I'd taken the job at Highway 46 Gas and Market, a 24-hour station on the edge of town, mostly because it was the only place that called me back when I was desperate for work. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't even particularly safe, but it paid just enough to cover my half of rent, my old Honda Civic's insurance, and the kind of groceries you buy in bulk and stretch for weeks. I worked mostly night shifts. Night shifts at a gas station are their own kind of world. During the day, people come and go without thinking. Moms with SUVs, construction workers, families heading out for road trips. At night, it's different. The air feels heavier. Every customer that walks through the door feels like a question mark. Sometimes just tired travelers, sometimes people you don't want to make eye contact with. I got used to it, though. The hum of the coolers, the flicker of the fluorescent lights, the rattle of the coffee machine. I'd read on slow nights, clean the counters, and sometimes just stand there staring at the parking lot, trying not to let the shadows play tricks on me. I thought I'd built up a thick enough skin to handle anything. I thought wrong. It was late October, a Saturday night sliding into Sunday morning, the kind of night where the air had a little bite to it, but not cold enough for jackets yet. I came in at 10 p.m. sharp. My manager, Denise, handed me the keys and gave me her usual rundown. Keep an eye on pump 4. It's been acting up. And don't let anyone hang around by the dumpsters again. Corporate's breathing down my neck about loiterers. Got it, I said, trying not to sound as tired as I felt. She gave me a look, the kind that says you're too young to look this worn out already, then grabbed her purse and headed for the door. For the first couple of hours, it was uneventful. A few college kids grabbing energy drinks, a trucker topping off his tank and buying 3 bags of beef jerky, a mom with a half-asleep toddler picking up Tylenol. The usual. I stayed behind the counter, sipped burnt coffee, and texted my sister in between customers. Around midnight, the station got quiet. The parking lot was empty except for one sedan parked at the far edge. Sometimes people sat out there to eat or take a break, so I didn't think much of it at first. At 12:20, the bell above the door jingled. A man walked in, tall, maybe 6'2", with a wiry frame. He wore a faded gray hoodie with the hood up, jeans that looked too short for him, and old sneakers. His hands were shoved in his pockets, and the way he moved made me immediately straighten up. Not rushed, not relaxed, just off. Evening, I said, keeping my voice neutral but friendly. He didn't answer, just walked straight past me toward the restrooms. That wasn't unusual. Lots of people used the bathrooms and left without buying anything. But the way he glanced at me before pushing the door open, like he was checking to see if I was watching him, sent a prickle down my neck. A few minutes later, he came back out. His hood was still up, but his face was flushed, like he'd been caught doing something he shouldn't. He walked toward the counter with his hands slightly raised. "Hey," he said quickly, his voice low and urgent. I'm really sorry. I think I messed up your bathroom." My customer service smile flickered into place. "No worries, I'll take care of it." No, he interrupted, shaking his head. "You don't understand. It's bad, really bad. I clogged it. I can fix it, though. Just give me a plunger. I'll handle it. I don't want you to deal with my mess." The way he said it, too fast, too desperate, made my stomach knot. "It's fine," I said firmly. "Really? It's my job." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Please, just let me. I don't feel right leaving it like that." I froze. Customers apologize for bathroom messes all the time, but they didn't insist on fixing them, and they definitely didn't look at you with that kind of intensity in their eyes. "I'll grab the supplies," I said quickly, trying to move the conversation along. I started toward the supply closet near the restrooms, but I realized he was following me. Too close. His footsteps matched mine. When I reached the closet door, I stopped and turned slightly. "You can wait up front." He didn't. Instead, he pulled open the men's restroom door and tilted his head toward me. "Come on," he said with a strange little smile. "We'll take care of it together." Every nerve in my body screamed no. "I'll handle it," I said sharply. "Please step aside." For a second, his smile faltered. Something darker flickered across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by fake casualness. "Suit yourself." He stepped back but didn't go far. I grabbed gloves and the plunger, bracing myself. When I pushed the stall open, my stomach dropped. The toilet wasn't clogged with waste. It was stuffed with paper towels, jammed in deliberately. No accident. He wanted me in here. I backed out fast, heart pounding. When I came out, he was leaning against the counter, watching me. His expression wasn't embarrassed anymore. It was playful, like a kid who had set a trap. "Bad, right?" he asked, eyes glinting. I didn't answer. I just kept moving, trying to put space between us. As I passed, he let the back of his hand brush against my arm. The touch was light, but it made my skin crawl. "Sorry," he murmured. "Didn't mean to." I wanted to scream at him, to tell him to get out, but my throat closed up. He eventually bought a soda, paid in crumpled cash, and walked out, but not before turning back twice, smiling at me through the glass. That smile, I'll never forget it. I locked the restroom, finished my shift with shaking hands, and told Denise everything the next morning. She called the local police to file a report. A week later, one of our regulars told me they'd seen the same man being questioned by officers outside a liquor store down the road. Word spread that he wasn't allowed in the neighborhood anymore. That should have made me feel safe, but it didn't. Even now, years later, when I think about the way he smiled at me in that doorway, my chest tightens. Because I know with absolute certainty, if I'd stepped into that bathroom just a little further, if I'd let him close the door behind us, I might not be here to tell this story. That's why, under my register, tucked beside the spare rolls of receipt paper, I still keep a small can of pepper spray. Because at a gas station, day or night, you never really know what's about to walk through that door. Story 4, I never imagined my life would stall out at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. But that's where I ended up, and that's where I saw something that still keeps me awake most nights. My name's Ethan Cole. I'm 23 years old, and for the past 2 years, I've been working nights at a Sunoco station off Highway 19 in Ashbrook, Colorado. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. After high school, I had big plans, community college, maybe transferring to a state university later. But my dad's heart attack changed everything. Tuition wasn't cheap, bills piled up, and my mom worked 2 jobs already. I dropped out after 1 semester, telling myself I'd go back once the things settled. But life doesn't settle. It just keeps going. And before I knew it, I was stuck here. The money was barely enough for my 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. My only real social life came from my coworker, Tina Morales, the assistant manager. Tina was in her early 30s, a single mom of 2, sharp-tongued but kind. She used to joke that I was like her annoying little brother, always needing advice about life. "Ethan," she'd say while counting lottery slips, "you're smart. Don't rot in this place like me. You deserve more than sticky counters and stale donuts." I'd laugh it off, but inside I knew she was right. That Saturday started like any other. I clocked in at 4 p.m. sharp, relieved the day shift kid who always left the coffee pots empty and the bathroom a mess. I stocked the shelves, wiped down the register, and double counted the cigarettes. The air carried the usual mix of burnt coffee, motor oil, and that faint metallic tang of gasoline that never leaves your clothes. By 9:30 p.m., the rush was over. The coolers hummed, moths tapped against the fluorescent lights, and the bell above the door stayed quiet. I popped one earbud in, listening to a true crime podcast when the door jingled. A young couple came in, arms linked, laughing about something only they understood. They grabbed chips and soda. I gave them a nod, pretending not to notice the way they whispered and smiled. I envied that. For a moment, the night felt ordinary. Then at 10:12 p.m., everything changed. I heard it first, the slow, heavy crunch of tires over gravel. I looked through the wide glass windows. An old, rust-brown Buick sedan rolled into Pump 4. The headlights flickered weakly, like they were on their last breath. The engine coughed and died. Inside, a man sat still, hands locked on the steering wheel. He didn't move, didn't even glance at the pump, just stared forward. He looked wrong. Mid to late 40s maybe, with stringy hair and a patchy beard. His skin looked sallow in the overhead lights, his eyes too wide, too hollow, like he hadn't slept in weeks. Something about the way he held himself, the rigid stillness, made my stomach tighten. I waited, expecting him to get out. He didn't. He just sat there. Finally, I pushed open the glass door. The night air was cool, with a thin veil of fog rolling across the lot. "Evening," I called, trying to sound casual. "Pumps are open." His head snapped toward me so fast I flinched. His eyes locked on mine. For a split second, I swore I saw fear flicker across his face. Real, raw fear. But then it hardened into something else. Flat. Cold. He shook his head slowly. "Don't need it." I forced a smile. "Car giving you trouble?" No answer. His eyes dropped back to the wheel. knuckles white around it. I started to back away when something caught my eye. Something in the back seat. A black cloth, ragged, covering something. From under the edge of it, I saw a hand. Small, pale, fingers curled slightly inward. At first, I told myself it was fake, a mannequin maybe. But the skin looked too real. My throat tightened. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Hey, is that your kid back there?" His head jerked up. His eyes burned. "Mind your business." His voice was gravel. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to walk away. But that image of the little hand, too small, too still, was burned into my mind. I nodded, pretending to back off. "All right, just checking." I slipped back inside the station, heart hammering. My hands shook as I picked up the phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I kept my voice low, eyes locked on the sedan through the glass. "My name's Ethan Cole. I'm at the Sunoco on Highway 19 in Ashbrook. There's a man out here, his car. I think there's a kid in the back seat, covered with a cloth. He told me to mind my business, but something's not right." The dispatcher asked for details. I gave everything: the make, the plate number, the man's description. Minutes stretched like hours. The sedan didn't move. The man sat frozen, gripping the wheel. Then, headlights. 2 sheriff's cruisers pulled in, lights flashing silently. The man saw them instantly. His door flew open. He bolted, sprinting toward the woods behind the station. "Sir, stop!" a deputy shouted, chasing after him. The other rushed to the car. I pressed to the glass as he yanked the cloth away. My stomach dropped. It wasn't fake. A little boy lay there, pale, unconscious, breathing shallow but alive. "Got a child! Need EMS now," the deputy yelled into his radio. Relief hit me, sharp and dizzying. Out near the woods, I heard shouting. A struggle. The first deputy tackled the man, dragging him down. He thrashed, snarling like an animal. But eventually they cuffed him and hauled him back, face twisted with rage. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just stared at me as they shoved him into the cruiser. A stare so cold it felt like ice down my spine. The boy was rushed to the hospital. Later I'd learned he'd been missing for 2 days, taken from a shopping mall 2 towns over. His family had been desperate. If I hadn't noticed that hand, that thought haunted me. The next days blurred. Police reports, interviews, restless nights. The sheriff thanked me, said I probably saved the boy's life. Everyone called me a hero. But gratitude didn't ease the unease. I kept replaying the moment, the man's eyes locking on mine, the way he said, "Mind your business." Because sometimes late at night, I wonder how many people had seen him before me, how many had minded their business, and what would have happened if I had too. Story 5. I never thought I'd still be working nights at a gas station by the time I hit 27. Life was supposed to look different. At least that's what I told myself when I was 18, standing in a cap and gown outside of Lincoln High, thinking the world was waiting for me. College, trade school, the military, something. Anything other than ringing up cigarettes and coffee at 2 a.m. in a town nobody's ever heard of. But plans don't hold much weight in a place like Hollow Creek, Ohio. It's the kind of town where every road eventually winds back to the same sagging strip mall and the same faded "Welcome to Hollow Creek" sign. Population barely 3,000, unless you count the ones who left and never came back. My dad used to tell me I had potential. He'd say it after a couple beers, half smiling like he almost believed it. But that was before the bottle stopped being his hobby and started being his oxygen. By the time I was 16, he was less my dad and more just another drunk glued to the recliner, yelling at a TV he barely watched. My mom? She left when I was 12, taking a duffel bag and never looking back. I guess she knew Hollow Creek was a trap. I stayed, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of fear. I told myself I was saving up for trade school, but years slipped by, and I was still here, still clocking in at Miller's Fuel and Mart, a rundown station that squats at the edge of town like an afterthought. From the outside, Miller's doesn't look like much. 3 cracked pumps under buzzing floodlights, a half-dead neon sign that stutters the word fuel against the night sky. The parking lot's always empty after dark, a stage waiting for something bad to happen. Inside, the place smells like burnt coffee and motor oil. The yellow linoleum floor is permanently stained. The soda cooler hums nonstop, a low reminder that time never really moves in here. It just stretches. I'd gotten used to the rhythm. Nights blurred together in a haze of stale air, bad coffee, and silence. You keep busy, stock the chips, sweep the same corner 100 times, wipe down the counter even though no one cares. But sometimes the quiet gets under your skin. Sometimes the air feels too heavy, like the walls are waiting for something. That night, the night I still can't shake, was in late November. The first real storm of the season had rolled in around sundown. By midnight, rain was hammering the roof so hard it felt like the whole place might cave. The parking lot shimmered like broken glass under the lights, puddles forming rivers that snaked toward the road. By 2 a.m., I was alone. Alone with the storm, alone with the cooler hum, alone with the thought that I'd wasted too many years here. I leaned on the counter, chin propped on my hand, staring at the rain. The register was balanced, shelves neat, coffee burned down to a crust at the bottom of the pot. That's when I saw headlights. Two beams cut through the rain, slicing across the front windows. My chest tightened. Not unusual. People come through at night sometimes. But the car didn't pull up to the pumps. It rolled slow, too slow, and stopped right in front of the door. I straightened, wiped my palms on my shirt. Dark sedan, older model. The plates were unreadable under the water running down the glass. The engine idled longer than it should have, a low rumble that set my teeth on edge. Then finally it cut off. The driver's door opened with a creak I swear I heard even over the storm. A man stepped out, tall, hoodie pulled low, fabric plastered against his shoulders from the rain. Jeans torn and stained, like he'd been wading through mud. He walked slow, deliberate, every step heavy. The bell over the door chimed sharp when he pushed it open. A gust of cold air swept in, bringing the smell of wet asphalt. "Evening," I said automatically. My voice sounded too thin, too eager. No answer. He didn't even glance at me, just walked past with stiff steps, heading straight to the coolers in the back. He stopped there, just stood, staring at the glass doors without opening one. I pretended to wipe the counter, rags squeaking against fake wood, but my eyes kept flicking toward him. Something about the way he moved, the slowness, the deliberate stillness, set every nerve on edge. Finally he turned, walked back, stopped at the counter. Water dripped from his sleeve, pooling dark circles on the laminate. He didn't speak. "Can I help you with something?" I asked. My throat was tight. That's when his hand came out of the hoodie pocket. He set a gun down on the counter. Not big, a revolver. Old, scratched, but real enough to freeze my blood. "Open the register," he said. His voice was low, calm, no hesitation. I stared. My mouth opened, shut, opened again. Then I fumbled with the keys. The drawer popped with a loud ding, making me flinch. "Faster," he muttered. I'm going," I stammered, stuffing bills into a plastic bag. My hands shook so bad the money stuck to my palms. When I held it out, he snatched it without looking, shoved it into his pocket. I thought he'd leave, but he didn't. The gun stayed there. His hood shadowed his face, but I felt his eyes on me. Cold, measuring. "Look, man," I said, my voice breaking. "You got what you came for. Just take it and go." The silence dragged. My heartbeat pounded so loud I thought he could hear it. Then, he tilted his head slightly, turned, walked to the door. The bell chimed soft as he pushed it open. Cold air swept in. Then he was gone. I stood frozen. My hands wouldn't unclench. My breath came shallow. It took me 3 tries to dial 911. 911, what's your emergency?" Gun, he robbed the store," I stammered. "Stay inside." "Lock the door. Officers are on their way." I locked the door, stared at the puddle of water he'd left on the tile. The cops came 20 minutes later, lights washing the lot blue and red. They asked questions, dusted for prints, replayed the grainy security footage. I could tell by their faces they didn't expect much. "Guy like that," one officer muttered. He's done this before. The weeks after were worse than the night itself. Every sound made me jump. The cooler hum, the slam of a car door outside, the ding of the bell. I started memorizing license plates, watching customers' hands, scanning pockets for bulges. Sleep came in scraps, broken by flashes of that gun, that voice. Linda, my manager, told me I could take time off. I didn't. Staying home meant thinking. At least at the station, I had something to do, even if it meant sweating every time the door opened. But the worst part wasn't the fear. It was how calm he'd been. How he looked at me like I wasn't even human. Like pulling the trigger would have been as casual as flipping a light switch. And he's still out there. Maybe tonight he's stepping into another lonely gas station. Some other poor kid behind the counter hearing that same low voice. Open the register, and maybe next time, he won't just walk away. Story 6, I never thought much about late-night driving until the year it all happened. I was 31 years old, working as a delivery coordinator for a logistics company out of Dallas, Texas. My name's Michael Harrington, though most people just call me Mike. At that point in my life, I wasn't married, didn't have kids, and most of my family lived scattered across the country. The only real family I had left in Texas was my mom, and she wasn't doing so well. She had early signs of dementia, and the doctors were trying to figure out whether it was genetic or just bad luck. That fall, my cousin Emily called me from Colorado. She had just had her second baby, and her husband had gone overseas for work. She asked me if I could drive up for a week to help her out. It sounded simple enough. Get in the car, make the trip north, and spend some time with her and the kids. But I underestimated just how draining the drive would be, especially after working a full day before heading out. That night, I loaded up my 2012 Ford Fusion with a duffel bag, a thermos of coffee, and a playlist I thought would keep me awake. My plan was to make it at least halfway into New Mexico before crashing at a motel, but I overestimated myself. I'd been on the road close to 8 hours and every muscle in my body ached from sitting so long. My eyes felt gritty, like sandpaper, and the steady hum of the tires on asphalt had started to lull me into a foggy state. By the time I hit the back roads outside Amarillo, I realized how badly I had messed up. The gas gauge was dangerously low. My digital display blinked range, 24 miles. My stomach nodded. Out there on those dark rural highways, there weren't many places to stop. The GPS on my phone had dropped out an hour ago, leaving me staring at a little gray circle floating in nowhere. I gripped the wheel tighter and muttered to myself, "Real smart, Mike. Real damn smart." The road stretched endlessly into the dark, lined with crooked trees and tall grass that swayed under the occasional gust of wind. The moon hung low, but it didn't do much to cut the shadows pressing in on both sides. Every once in a while, I thought I saw movement along the tree line, like figures shifting, watching. But each time I told myself it was just exhaustion messing with me. That's when I saw it, a glow in the distance, faint but steady, like a beacon in the dark. As I got closer, the shape came into focus, an old neon sign buzzing weakly against the night sky. It read, Hollow Creek Gas and Mart. Relief flooded through me. I actually laughed, a dry, scratchy sound. Thank God. About damn time the place looked like it hadn't been updated in decades. One pump, its paint chipped and faded. The convenience store was attached, a squat rectangular building with clouded windows. The neon flickered like it was barely alive. The lot itself was cracked, gravel scattered across broken pavement. Still, gas was gas. I pulled up to the pump, my headlights sweeping across the storefront. For the briefest second, I thought I saw movement in one of the windows, a flicker of a figure stepping back. My heart thumped, but I shook it off. You're just tired, man. Don't start seeing things. I stepped out into the cool night air, stretching my back until it popped. The smell of gasoline already lingered faintly, though I hadn't even started pumping yet. The pump itself looked ancient, one of those with the mechanical meter that clicked numbers instead of a digital screen. As I slid the nozzle into the tank, the pump groaned to life with a creak. Each tick of the numbers sounded too loud in the silence. I shoved my free hand into my jacket pocket, trying to shake the uneasy feeling settling in my gut. That's when I heard it. a voice, low, almost conversational, coming from somewhere near the store. "You're traveling late, ain't you?" I whipped around. A man stood just beyond the glow of the neon. He was tall, rail-thin, wearing a faded flannel shirt and jeans that hung loose on his frame. His hair was long, stringy, and his face was pale in the dim light. What unsettled me wasn't just that he had appeared without a sound. It was his eyes. They looked too wide, too fixed on me, like he hadn't blinked in a long time. I swallowed hard. "Yeah, long drive." He smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Not many folks come through Hollow Creek this time of night." "You're lucky the pump's working," I forced a chuckle. "Yeah, lucky. Place looks like it hasn't seen business in years." His smile lingered. "Oh, we get business. You'd be surprised who stops by." Something about the way he said we made my skin crawl. Before I could reply, the pump clicked, signaling my tank was full. I fumbled with the nozzle, slipping it back into its holder. My instinct screamed at me to just get in the car and drive. But part of me, the part that didn't want to be rude, felt like I had to acknowledge him. You work here?" I asked. His head tilted slightly. Something like that. I didn't like his answer. I didn't like the way his shadow stretched across the gravel. Too long, as if the neon light warped it unnaturally. I cleared my throat. "Well, I should hit the road. Thanks for, having gas." His grin widened. "Don't you want to come inside? Rest a spell? Long drives can wear a man down." Every nerve in my body screamed no. I shook my head quickly. "Appreciate it, but I've got family waiting." "Need to keep moving." For a moment, he just stared at me. The silence pressed heavy. Then just as suddenly as he'd appeared, he stepped back toward the shadows. His voice drifted after him. "Safe travels, friend." Not everyone makes it out this way. The hair on my arm stood on end. I didn't look back. I climbed into my car, started the engine, and pulled out fast enough to spray gravel behind me. As I glanced in the rearview mirror, I caught sight of him standing in the doorway of the store, his face hidden in shadow, watching me leave. My pulse hammered all the way down the road. I told myself not to look back again, not to imagine what might have happened if I had stepped inside. But even now, years later, when I drive late at night, I sometimes see a faint neon glow in the distance. And I wonder if it's Hollow Creek calling me back. Story 7. I never thought my life would narrow down to the glow of fluorescent lights and the hum of gas pumps in the dead of night. But in the winter of 2018, that's where I found myself. Behind the counter of a half-forgotten gas station in Hollow Pines, Oregon, a town that most maps barely bothered to name. My name is Ethan Cole. I was 29, broke, and running out of places to go. Life hadn't always been like this. I grew up in Portland, the son of a mechanic and a school secretary. My dad worked with his hands, grease under his fingernails, his back bent from years under cars. My mom was the steady one, the voice that reminded me of appointments and homework deadlines, the one who left sticky notes on the fridge with little hearts. For a while, I thought I'd done everything right. College, a decent job at an insurance company, a girlfriend I thought I'd marry. But things unravel fast when you stop paying attention. My dad died of a heart attack when I was 26, and I never really picked myself back up after that work slipped. My girlfriend Anna got tired of the late nights, the drinking, the hollowed-out version of me I'd become. By the time she left, I was already on thin ice at the office. 2 months later, I was out of a job, out of a relationship, and out of excuses. That's how I ended up in Hollow Pines. My uncle had a place there, a trailer he barely used. And when he heard about my situation, he offered it up rent-free. I told myself it would just be for a few months, a place to regroup to get back on track. But weeks turned into months, and I couldn't seem to shake the weight pressing down on me. Work was scarce. The only place hiring was Hollow Pines Gas and Marta's squat little building off Highway 47. 2 pumps out front, a buzzing neon sign that never lit up all the way, and an inside that smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a paycheck. My shift was the graveyard, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I told myself I didn't mind. Fewer people, fewer questions. Nights were quiet in Hollow Pines. Too quiet sometimes. I still remember my first shift. The night air bit at my face as I pulled into the cracked parking lot. The station sat low against the tree line, the surrounding pines so thick they looked like a wall. My headlights swept across the windows, and for a moment I thought I saw movement inside. Just the reflection, I told myself. Inside, the hum of the refrigerators was the loudest sound. The cashier I was replacing, a wiry kid named Matt who couldn't have been older than 19, looked like he'd been counting down the minutes until freedom. "You're Cole, right?" he asked, pulling on his hoodie. "Ethan," I corrected. He shrugged. "Doesn't matter. Just watch the pumps, don't let anyone use the employee bathroom, and if the power cuts out, don't freak." I frowned. "Why would the power cut out?" He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Old wiring. Happens a lot. Just don't, go outside if it does." Before I could ask what the hell that meant, he was gone, the bell above the door jingling as it shut. The first few weeks blurred together. Nights at Hollow Pines Gas, and Mart had a rhythm. 10 to 12, a few regulars, truckers grabbing coffee, locals buying smokes. 12 to 2, dead quiet. The kind of silence that made every creak of the building sound like footsteps. 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, a car or two, sometimes nothing at all. 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Early risers on their way to logging shifts, bleary-eyed and already smelling like sawdust. I stocked shelves, wiped counters, and listened to the hum of the refrigerators. Sometimes I played music off my phone just to fill the air, but the quiet always came back, heavy and suffocating. The woods pressed in from every side, black and endless. Sometimes when I stepped out to sweep the lot, I swore I heard movement just beyond the tree line. Branches cracking, something shifting. I told myself it was deer or the wind. It was late January, 3 months into the job, when I saw him for the first time. The night had been uneventful, the kind that lulled you into a haze. Around 1:30 a.m., I was reorganizing the cigarette case when the sound of gravel crunching pulled my head up. Through the glass, a man stood at pump 2. He wasn't moving, just standing there facing the station. At first I thought maybe he was checking the pump, but he didn't reach for the handle. He didn't look at his car, if there even was one. He just stared. A shiver crawled down my spine. After what felt like a full minute, he started walking toward the entrance. When the door opened, the temperature in the room seemed to dip. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with long, greasy hair that clung to his face. His clothes looked filthy, layers of flannel and denim worn to threads. His boots left dried mud tracks on the tile. He stopped at the counter. His eyes were wrong. Too sharp, too still. "Bathroom," he said. His voice was low, gravelly, like it had scraped up from somewhere deep. I cleared my throat. "Sorry, it's for employees only." His stare didn't break. "Please." It didn't sound like a request. It sounded like a statement, a test. "There's a public restroom down at the truck stop," I said, keeping my voice steady. The silence stretched. My skin crawled under his gaze. Finally, he turned and walked out, the door chimes shrill in the empty air. Through the glass, I watched him climb into a rusted-out sedan. The engine coughed to life, but he didn't drive away. He just sat there, watching. The minutes dragged. Every time I glanced outside, his silhouette was still there behind the cracked windshield. I tried to call my boss, Gary. He answered on the third ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Lock the door," he said flatly. "Don't let him in again. If he causes trouble, call the sheriff. Probably just some drifter." "Yeah," I muttered, but my gut told me different. By 3 a.m., my nerves were shot. I was halfway to convincing myself I was imagining it when the lights cut out. The refrigerators fell silent. The neon sign flickered off. The station was swallowed by darkness. I fumbled for the flashlight under the counter, my hands shaking. The beam cut through the black in narrow slices. From the back of the store came a sound, a scrape. "Hello?" My voice cracked. Silence. Then, another scrape. Closer, I swung the light toward the sound. Empty aisles. And then, in the corner of the beam, movement. I turned. He was there, standing at the back door, face pressed to the glass. His breath fogged the pain. His eyes locked on mine. My chest tightened. I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man outside my station, I whispered. He's been here for hours. The power's out. He's at the back door, just staring at me. The dispatcher's tone shifted, calm but urgent. Okay, sir. Stay on the line. Officers are on their way. Do not open the door. Do you understand? Yes, I breathed. Minutes crawled. My flashlight beam shook against the counter. Then, headlights. Red and blue lights flashed across the lot. I blinked. He was gone. Deputy Hale was the one who showed up. A tall man with a lined face and tired eyes. Nobody out there, he said after circling the lot. His flashlight beam cut across the tree line. But I saw him, I insisted. He was right there. He's been watching me all night. Hale studied me for a long moment, then he nodded. I'll file a report. Call again if you see him. When he left, the silence pressed in heavier than ever. The power flickered back on 20 minutes later, as if nothing had happened. A week later, I caught a news segment while eating dinner in the trailer. A car had been found abandoned in the woods off Highway 47. Inside, a man's body. The vehicle matched the rusted sedan I'd seen. The man had been dead for weeks. Weeks. But that couldn't be, because I had spoken to him. I had seen his breath on the glass. For 3 nights after, I worked with my chest tight, every sound setting me on edge. On the 4th night, I quit, left the keys on the counter and never went back. Even now, years later, I wake in the dark, the weight of unseen eyes pressing against me. Sometimes when the night is too still, I check the window, half expecting to see him standing there, waiting, watching. Story 8, I never pictured myself working the night shift at a gas station. When I was a kid, I thought I'd end up doing something bigger, something that mattered. My name's Ethan Cole, I'm 27 years old, and I grew up in Maple Creek, a quiet little town in northern Montana. It's the sort of place where winters last too long, summers vanish too fast, and most people either take over the family business or move away as soon as they're old enough to pack their bags. I was supposed to be one of the ones who left. After high school, I got accepted to a community college down in Billings. I thought it was my ticket out, but money runs out faster than you think. My mom's health took a bad turn, hospital bills piled up, and before long I was back in Maple Creek, working whatever jobs I could just to keep her comfortable. Landscaping in the summer, snow plowing in the winter, helping at the sawmill whenever they needed an extra pair of hands. Then one spring, I landed a steady job at Creekside Gas and Market, the only gas station on the edge of town. The pay wasn't great, but the hours were consistent and it kept the lights on at home. The owner, Mr. Hayes, was in his late 60s, a wiry man with nicotine-stained fingers and a voice that always sounded tired. He didn't care much about small talk, but he liked me because I showed up on time, didn't steal from the till, and didn't complain about the late shifts. And so I became a night shift clerk at a nowhere gas station. Most people would call that boring, but to me it was peaceful. The nights were slow, truckers would swing through for diesel and coffee, teenagers sometimes rolled in for snacks, but most of the time it was just me, the hum of the coolers, and the buzzing fluorescent lights overhead. But Maple Creek isn't like other towns. It has its share of old stories, the kind you hear when you're a kid around a campfire. Folks say the woods surrounding us aren't right, that people get lost in there and never come back. Some swear the shadows move when you aren't looking, that if you're quiet enough, you can hear whispers under the trees. I always brushed it off. Stories are just stories. Until one night made me realize some stories come from somewhere. It was a Friday night in late September, the kind of night when the air already carries that sharp bite of autumn. The day shift clerk, Robbie, handed me the keys around 10 p.m. Dead slow today, he said, stretching his arms. Couple hunters came through, that's about it. Good, I muttered. Robbie smirked as he slung his jacket on. Hey, don't let the bathroom ghost get you. I rolled my eyes. You're an idiot. He grinned and pushed out the door, leaving me alone under the hum of the lights. That's how it always started. Me alone, settling into the rhythm. Wiping down the counter, brewing another pot of stale coffee, straightening up the shelves. It was quiet enough that I could hear the coolers humming in the back. Quiet enough that I started to feel like I was the only person awake in the whole damn town. Around 1 a.m., I made my usual rounds. I checked the aisles, chips lined up, candy stocked, sodas humming cold. Everything was in its place. When I got to the back hallway, I noticed something that made me stop. The restroom door was cracked open. That was odd. We always shut it at the end of the day. I hadn't been back there once since clocking in. "Hello?" I called, pushing the door wider. The restroom was empty, clean, silent. Just me staring at my reflection in the mirror above the sink. My face looked uneasy, like it knew something my mind didn't. I shut the door tight, telling myself I was just being jumpy. But when I went back to the counter, my eyes kept flicking to the security monitor, the one showing the hallway outside the restroom. It was 2:47 a.m. when it happened. I was halfway through a paperback when a sound cut through the silence. A dull thud. I froze, eyes locked on the monitor. The hallway was empty. Then, without warning, the restroom door slammed open. A man stumbled out. He was tall, gaunt, drenched in sweat. His chest heaved like he'd been running for miles. His eyes, wild, frantic, snapped left and right as if he didn't recognize where he was. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "You okay?" He didn't look at me, didn't say a word. He bolted, ran straight past the counter, shoved through the glass doors, and vanished into the night. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My pulse thundered in my ears. I looked back at the monitor, and my stomach dropped. The footage showed the restroom door swinging open, the man stepping out. But before that moment, nothing. No one had gone inside. Hands shaking, I forced myself down the hallway. I pushed open the restroom door. Empty. No damp footprints. No sign anyone had been there. I grabbed the phone and called Mr. Hayes. My voice was shaking so bad I barely got the words out. "Someone was just here," I stammered. "They came out of the restroom." I swear to God, they came out of nowhere. There was a pause, then his groggy voice. "Ethan, it's almost 3 in the morning. Lock the doors. Go home. We'll check the tapes tomorrow." And he hung up. So I did as he said, locked up, shut off the lights, and walked to my car under the heavy silence of the night. Every step felt like eyes were on me. The next morning, I sat beside Hayes at the counter. We pulled up the footage. There I was at the register, flipping through my book. The hallway empty, the door shut. Then, out of nowhere, it burst open. The man stepped out. Hayes rubbed his face. Where the hell did he come from? We rewound, slowed it down, frame by frame. The restroom stayed empty. Then suddenly, he was there. Hayes muttered, "Could be some prank." Maybe hiding in the ceiling tiles. I shook my head. I checked. There's nowhere to hide. We searched the restroom together, every vent, every corner, nothing. Hayes tried to brush it off, but I saw it unsettled him too. I kept working the night shift, but it was never the same. Every sound made my stomach clench. Every flicker of the lights pulled my eyes back to that hallway. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear it again. That dull thud. Sometimes when the AC kicked on, I'd swear I felt a cold draft brush my arm. Just like that night. And sometimes if I stared too long at the monitor, I swore I saw movement inside the restroom. A shadow bending where no one stood. 6 months later, I quit Creekside Gas and Market. Couldn't take it anymore. The sleepless nights, the way my chest tightened every time I drove past. But even after I left, it stayed with me. Because I know what I saw. I know that man was real. The terror in his eyes still wakes me up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, heart pounding. He wasn't just scared. He was running from something. And sometimes when I drive past the station late at night, I swear I hear it again. That same dull thud. And I know if I waited long enough, I'd see him too. The man who was never supposed to be there. Story 9. I never imagined my life would shrink down to the silence of a highway gas station. But here I am. My name is Daniel Reyes. I'm 28 years old, and 2 years ago, my life looked a lot different than it does now. I grew up in Maple Creek, Colorado, a town small enough that everyone knew everyone, but big enough that you could still get lost in its back roads. My dad worked construction, my mom was a nurse. I wasn't the best student, but I loved cars. Engines made sense to me in a way nothing else did. That's how I ended up working at Miller's Auto, a local shop run by Frank Miller, the kind of guy who taught you as much about life as he did about carburetors. Frank was more than a boss, he was a mentor. He'd pat me on the back after a long day, crack open a soda and say, "Danny, you keep your hands busy, your heart steady, and you'll be fine in this world." I believed him. But last year Frank died. Heart attack, sudden, no warning. One day he was tuning up a Honda. The next day the shop was dark, doors chained shut. His kids didn't want to keep it running. Just like that, I was out of work. Bills don't stop when your world does. Rent notices, electric bills, medical payments. I watched them pile up on the counter of my tiny apartment. I applied everywhere. Restaurants, warehouses, even tried delivery driving, but nothing stuck. Finally, I landed the graveyard shift at Red Oak Gas and Mart, a lonely station off Route 46, about 12 miles south of Maple Creek. The pay was barely enough to scrape by, but it was work. Work I hated, but work all the same. The thing about graveyard shifts is the silence. It's not the kind of quiet you get in your bedroom at night. It's heavier, emptier. The station sits on a stretch of highway surrounded by dry plains and clusters of pine. After 10 p.m., it's just me, the buzzing lights, and whatever drivers happen to roll through. Some nights I don't mind it. I drink stale coffee, sweep the aisles, and listen to the radio. Other nights I feel like the walls are listening. The night it all happened started like any other. It was 1:54 a.m. I'd just finished restocking the chip aisle and was leaning on the counter, scrolling through my phone. The fluorescent lights above hummed faintly. The bell above the door chimed. A man walked in, tall, thin, wearing a dusty denim jacket and a cap pulled low. His boots tracked faint prints of dirt across the tiles. "Evening," I said, forcing a smile. He didn't answer. He moved slow, like his bones ached, heading toward the back coolers. On the security monitor above the register, I watched him pause by the sodas, his reflection bent in the convex mirror at the aisle's end. Finally, he grabbed a bottle and shuffled to the counter. He set it down without meeting my eyes. "That'll be $2.29, I said. He pulled a crumpled bill from his jacket and slid it across. His hand shook slightly. "You all right?" I asked. For the first time, he looked at me. His eyes were bloodshot, rimmed with exhaustion. He leaned closer. His voice rasped like gravel. "You shouldn't be here tonight." I froze. The register beeped under my fingertips. "What do you mean?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just stared for a moment longer, then turned, pushed open the door, and walked into the night. I stood there, his words echoing in my head. At 2:18 a.m., the lights flickered. Not once, not a power surge. They dimmed in order. First the back corner by the coolers, then the snack aisle, then the light above me. Each buzzed faintly, then returned. I muttered, "Great." Another electrical issue. But then I heard it, whispering. At first I thought it was the radio, but I'd turned it off an hour earlier. It was faint, a hush threading through the store, like words carried on the hum of the lights. I stepped out from behind the counter listening. The sound grew clearer, overlapping voices, low and high, tangled together. I couldn't make out the language. It seemed to come from outside. I unlocked the glass door and pushed it open. Cold night air rushed in, sharp and dry. The lot was empty. No cars. The neon sign buzzed above the pumps. "Hello," I called, voice cracking. The whispering stopped. I stood there for a full minute, staring into the emptiness, before stepping back inside. I locked the door. My heart beat too fast. At 2:41 a.m., the landline rang. Now that phone almost never rang at night. Daytime, sure. Deliveries, regulars, my manager checking in. But after midnight, almost never. I picked up. "Red Oak Gas and Mart, this is Daniel." Silence. Then the whispering again, louder, directly in my ear, spilling through the receiver. "Who is this?" I demanded. No answer. Just layers of voices, weaving together, speaking in a tongue I didn't know. Some words hissed, others growled. I slammed the phone down, my hands shaking. I tried to distract myself, stocked candy bars, straightened the shelves, wiped the counter. That's when I noticed it. a book, sitting on the counter. I froze. I hadn't seen it before. I just cleaned that space minutes earlier. It was small, bound in cracked brown leather. The pages looked yellowed, fragile. The cover had no title. I picked it up. It smelled of mildew and dust. Flipping it open, I frowned. The text wasn't English. The letters curled into unfamiliar shapes, symbols etched like carvings in stone. As I turned the pages, a cold draft brushed the back of my neck. The door was closed. The whispering began again. This time it wasn't outside. It was inside the store. I dropped the book. It hit the floor with a dull slap, pages fanning open. The voices grew louder, circling me, pressing against my skull. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside my head. On the floor, the book lay open to a single page. An illustration, a circle enclosing a star, strange writing etched around its edges. For reasons I can't explain, looking at it calmed me. My fear drained, replaced by a stillness like surrender. I knelt, touched the page with trembling fingers, and whispered, "What do you want from me?" No answer. Just silence. I don't remember closing the book. I don't remember picking up my keys. The next clear memory I have is standing outside the door, swinging open as if it had never been locked. The cold air filled my lungs. I bolted to my car. Didn't look back. Didn't shut the lights off. I drove until the station was nothing but a glow in my rearview mirror. I quit the next morning. Called my manager, told her I couldn't do it anymore. She sounded irritated but didn't press. A week later, I drove past Route 46 out of curiosity. The Red Oak Gas and Mart was closed. Windows boarded up. Neon sign dark. No notice. No explanation. Gone. No one in town ever mentioned why. No articles. No gossip. Just silence. But sometimes late at night, in the stillness of my apartment, I hear it again. The faintest whispering, like voices layered together, carried on the hum of the refrigerator or the buzz of a light. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I see that symbol burned into the back of my eyelids. I don't know if the voices stayed in that gas station or if they followed me. All I know is this: I'll never work the graveyard shift again. Story 10. I never thought a place as ordinary as a gas station could burn itself into my memory like a scar. But even now, every time I drive past Mill Creek and see the faded green sign for Gas and Go, my chest tightens. People laugh when I try to explain it. They think I'm exaggerating, that I've turned one bad night into some kind of campfire story. But the truth is, what happened in the summer of 2021 still haunts me. And if I hadn't been with my friends that night, if things had gone even a little differently, I don't think I'd be alive to tell it. Let me back up, though. Stories like this need context. I grew up in Mill Creek, Washington. Not the nice suburban part near Seattle people sometimes confuse it with. This was a different Mill Creek, a nowhere kind of town tucked between logging roads and damp forests that always smelled like pine and mold. Population maybe 9,000 on a good year. The kind of place with one diner, a thrift shop that changed names every 6 months, and a main street where half the businesses were temporarily closed, with paper signs in the windows that had been there for years. We had one high school, one grocery store, and one gas station that stayed open all night. Gas and Go. Everyone in town knew it. The parking lot was cracked asphalt with weeds pushing through. A single fluorescent light buzzed overhead, flickering like it couldn't decide whether to stay alive or not. Inside smelled like burnt coffee, motor oil, and something damp that never quite went away. But it was the only place open after midnight. For kids like us, that made it a landmark. My name's Evan Cole, and at the time I was 18. I'd just graduated high school but had no clue what came next. My dad was a trucker, always on the road, and my mom worked double shifts at the nursing home. College felt out of reach. Money was always tight, and the idea of staying in Mill Creek forever made me restless in a way I couldn't even explain. I spent most of my time with Tyler and Mason. Tyler was the reckless one, always chasing trouble like it was a sport. He was funny, magnetic, the kind of guy who could talk his way into or out of almost anything. Mason was the opposite, quiet, observant, the one who always noticed details Tyler and I missed. Then there was me, caught somewhere in the middle. I wasn't the instigator, but I wasn't the voice of reason either. Mostly I went along with whatever they wanted because it was better than being alone in my room, listening to the hum of silence and feeling the walls close in. That summer, sneaking out had become our ritual. My parents weren't strict, but they worried, and with my dad gone so often, my mom tried to keep me close. So I'd wait until she went to bed, then climb out the window, meeting Tyler and Mason by the old railroad bridge. From there, we'd walk the empty streets, share whatever booze Tyler had managed to steal from his older cousin, and complain about Mill Creek. It was late July, one of those nights where the air was so heavy it felt like wearing a wet blanket. I was lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the faint sound of my mom's TV through the wall when my phone buzzed. Tyler, bridge in 10. Bring drinks if you got 'em. Me, don't have any. Tyler, fine. Meet anyway. We're bored. I hesitated. I was tired, but staying home meant lying awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the future I didn't want in Mill Creek. So I shoved a hoodie on, slipped out the window, and walked to the bridge. They were already there when I arrived. Tyler leaned against the railing, a half-empty bottle of cheap vodka in hand. Mason sat on the edge, legs dangling, quiet as usual. "You took your sweet time," Tyler said, grinning. "We're dying out here." "You texted me 10 minutes ago," I shot back. Tyler shrugged. "Whatever." "We going to gas and go or what?" Mason frowned. "It's the same thing every night." "Yeah," Tyler said, "because it's tradition." "What else are we going to do? Sit here and count stars?" Mason sighed but didn't argue. That was how it always went. Tyler suggested, I followed. Mason came along because he didn't want to be left behind. So we started walking. The streets were empty, just the sound of our sneakers on cracked pavement and the occasional bark of a dog in the distance. The town always felt different at night, hollow like something was watching from the shadows of the trees. Gas and go looked worse than usual under the buzzing light. Tyler pushed the glass door open and it gave that same tired squeak. Inside, the clerk barely glanced up. He was a middle-aged guy with thinning hair, scrolling on his phone behind the counter. "I'm hitting the bathroom," Tyler muttered, shoving the bottle at me before disappearing down the hall. Mason and I drifted toward the snack aisle. That's when I noticed him. There was a man by the coolers, mid-40s, greasy hair hanging in his face, clothes rumpled like he'd slept in them for days. He was holding a bottle of water but not moving, just standing there, staring. At first I ignored him, but then he spoke. "Why are you kids out so late?" His voice was gravelly, low. Mason stiffened. I forced a shrug. "Just hanging out." "You by yourselves?" he asked, tilting his head. "No," I said quickly. "Friends in the bathroom." The man nodded slowly, eyes lingering on me too long. Then he pulled out an old flip phone, flipped it open, and started speaking in a low voice while still watching us. My stomach twisted. Something felt wrong. Mason leaned closer. "Let's pay and go." When Tyler came back, we told him. He laughed it off. "He's just a creep." Relax. But when we left, I caught the man following us out, phone pressed to his ear, watching. We walked a few blocks before cutting onto a side street, trying to shake the unease. We sat on the curb, cracked open the vodka, tried to joke around. But then headlights appeared. A car slowed, then pulled up. Two men stepped out. Both looked rough, dirty clothes, hollow faces, eyes too sharp. One of them had his hand near his waistband. That's when I saw it, the metallic glint of a gun. "Run," Mason whispered. We bolted. Tyler and I dove behind a rusted RV. Mason scrambled over a fence. My heart hammered so hard I thought I'd pass out. The men walked slowly down the street, scanning. One of them raised the gun, not pointing, just holding it like a promise. They stood there for what felt like forever before getting back in the car. Tyler and I exchanged a wide-eyed look. "Where's Mason?" I hissed. My phone buzzed. A text. "Mason, I'm good." Hopped fences. Think they're circling. Going home relieved but still panicked, Tyler and I cut toward my neighborhood. That's when we saw it. The car, parked at the end of the street, headlights off, waiting. "Shit," Tyler muttered. We ran again, through alleys, over fences. The car kept showing up. crawling along like it knew we had nowhere to go. By the time we reached my house, my legs were jelly. I climbed through my window, chest burning. Tyler followed. We sat in silence, listening, waiting. My phone buzzed again. Mason. Home. But another car followed me for a while, peeled off. None of us slept that night. It's been years, but I can't shake it. Tyler doesn't sneak out anymore. Mason gets anxious walking alone after dark. And me? Every time I pass Gas and Go, I see that man in my head. The way he asked if we were alone. The way he called someone right before it started. I'll never know for sure if he was connected, but in my gut, I know he was. And I know if we hadn't run as fast as we did, none of us would have made it out of Mill Creek alive. Story 11. I never thought I'd end up working the night shift at a gas station in the middle of Kansas, but life has a way of taking you places you never planned. My name is Daniel Price. I'm 27, and in the fall of 2021, I found myself stuck in a routine I didn't think I'd ever sink into. 2 years earlier, I had been living in Denver, working construction. It wasn't glamorous, but the paychecks were steady, and the guys on my crew felt like brothers. Then COVID hit, projects dried up, and layoffs came fast. By the time I got the call, I already knew. I'd burned through savings in a few months, and when rent in the city got too steep, I packed my things and headed east to Ellisford, a small town where my uncle had an old trailer I could stay in rent-free. Ellisford wasn't much. Population 1,800, a few diners, a Dollar General, and the kind of main street that rolled up after 6 p.m. The only place that stayed open through the night was Redwood Gas and Mart, sitting on the shoulder of Highway 64, the place where truckers stopped for fuel and lonely travelers grabbed stale coffee at 2 a.m. That became my workplace when bills started piling up. I told myself it was temporary, but temporary has a way of sticking. The night shift was quiet, too quiet most nights. My boss, a big guy named Rick Holbrook, used to joke, "If you can survive Ellisford nights without going crazy, you can survive anything." I'd clock in around 10:30 p.m., grab the keys from Rick if he was closing, and settle into the counter stool with a thermos of coffee. My job was simple: watch the pumps, clean up spills, restock shelves when they were low, and deal with whatever random souls wandered in. Some nights were boring: a trucker buying jerky, a drunk college kid stumbling through on his way back to Wichita. Some nights, though, you'd get strange ones. People who avoided eye contact, people who didn't answer when you greeted them, people who lingered in the parking lot long after they finished pumping gas, staring at the road like they were waiting for something. Rick told me not to worry. Highways bring all kinds. 99% are harmless, but it was that 1% I couldn't stop thinking about. That night started like any other. It was cold, the kind of Kansas cold where the wind cuts through your jacket no matter how thick it is. I parked my beat-up Corolla behind the station, walked in, and relieved Mandy, the evening cashier. "Slow night," she said, handing me the logbook. 2 truckers, 1 couple arguing about cigarettes, and that's it? "Good luck," I laughed. "Sounds thrilling." She smirked, grabbed her purse, and left me alone in the hum of fluorescent lights and soda machines. For the first 2 hours, nothing happened. I swept the floor, stocked the candy aisle, and flipped through my phone. Midnight rolled around, and the world outside felt dead silent. No semis, no cars, just the whistle of the wind against the canopy. That's when I noticed it. A gray Ford Taurus sitting at pump 3. The engine was off, but the headlights were still on, casting weak beams across the cracked pavement. At first, I didn't think much of it. People pull up, take a minute before getting out, maybe making a call or digging for a credit card. But after 5 minutes, then 10, then 15, the car still hadn't moved. I leaned forward, squinting through the glass. The windows were tinted dark, so I couldn't see inside. "All right," I muttered, pushing myself off the stool. "Let's see what the hell's going on." The cold hit me as soon as I stepped out. I shoved my hands into my hoodie pocket and walked toward pump 3. The Taurus just sat there, low hum from its headlights, no movement inside. I knocked gently on the driver's window. "Hey, you guys all right?" No response. I tried again. Louder. "Hello? Station closes the pumps if the car just sits." Still nothing. Something about the silence made the hairs on my neck stand up. Finally, I bent slightly, trying to peer in through the glass. That's when I saw it. The driver's seat was empty. My stomach dropped. The car was running lights, keys must have been in ignition, but nobody was inside. I backed up slowly, looking around the lot. Empty highway, empty parking spaces. Just me, the car, and the hum of the lights. Jesus, I whispered. I hurried back inside, locking the glass door behind me. My hands shook as I grabbed the phone. Rick's gonna love this, I muttered, dialing his number. He picked up on the third ring, voice groggy. Dan? You good? Yeah, no. There's a car at pump 3. Taurus. Lights on, nobody inside. Been sitting there like 15 minutes, he sighed. Probably some trucker ditched it. Don't overthink it. If it's still there by morning, we'll call it in. But it's running. Well, the lights are. And the doors look locked, Rick paused. Don't go messing with it. Just keep the doors locked. If anyone comes in asking, fine. If not, let it be. I wanted to argue, but I just said, all right, and hung up. For the next hour, I sat there staring out the window at that Taurus. And then things got worse. Around 1:20 a.m., the front door beeped. I jerked up, heart pounding. A man walked in, tall, gaunt, maybe late 30s. He wore a dark jacket zipped to his chin, jeans stiff with dirt, and a ball cap pulled low. His eyes, when I finally caught them, looked glassy, like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't say anything, just walked slowly down the snack aisle, running his hand along the shelves. Evening, I said, trying to sound casual. He didn't respond. After a minute, he came up to the counter with a single item, a pack of gum. I scanned it, the silence unbearable. That'll be $1.39. He slid a crumpled 5 across the counter. As I reached for the register, I noticed his hand. Scraped knuckles, dried blood under the nails. My throat tightened. I handed him his change. There you go. He didn't take it, just stared at me for a long second, then pocketed the gum and walked out. I watched as he crossed the lot and went straight to the Taurus, the one that had been empty for over an hour. He opened the driver's side door and got in. The lights flickered once, then the car shut completely off. I'll spare you the second-by-second breakdown of my panic. The next 30 minutes were a blur of me pacing the store, checking the locks, debating whether to call 911. By the time I finally picked up the phone, headlights cut across the lot again. Not from the Taurus, from a white van pulling in fast. It stopped near the dumpster. The driver's side door opened and 2 figures got out. One of them was the gaunt man. The other, someone I hadn't seen before. Stocky, wearing a hoodie. They walked to the back of the van, yanked the doors open, and I swear to God, I saw an arm fall limply out, pale, lifeless. My breath caught. The stocky guy shoved it back inside, slammed the van doors, and both men just stood there, talking, pointing toward the dumpster. That was it. That was my breaking point. I ducked behind the counter, dialed 911 with shaking fingers. The dispatcher's calm voice barely held me together. I told her everything about the Taurus, the man, the van, the arm. She told me to stay hidden, stay quiet, that officers were on the way. 10 minutes later, red and blue lights filled the lot. 2 cruisers pulled in, sirens off. Officers got out, guns drawn. They approached the van first, ordered the men out, shouted commands. But by the time they opened the van doors, it was empty. No body, no arm, just an old spare tire and some tools. They searched the Taurus too. Nothing. When the officers came inside to take my statement, their faces carried that mix of irritation and pity. Like they thought I was exhausted, imagining things. But I know what I saw. I know what I saw. The next day, Rick called me into his office. Dan, look, he said, scratching his beard. The cops said there wasn't anything there. No bodies, no crime. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. It wasn't, I snapped. There was an arm. I swear to God. He held up his hand. I believe you believe it. But I can't have you calling 911 every time something looks weird. You understand? I nodded, but inside I was burning. Because that night, when I went home, I couldn't shake the smell that clung to me. That sweet, metallic wrong. The smell I'd noticed when the van doors opened. And I knew deep down the truth the cops would never print. The town would never acknowledge. Sometimes silence doesn't mean peace. Sometimes silence means something is very, very wrong.